Welcome to class today, guys. I'm away, so I've recorded our lesson, and you can just listen to me as I write the solutions to the questions, just like we normally do in class. So today's date is January the 12th, and our first example asks us to give the equation of the line in standard form. So we might start off with the y equals mx plus b, but our goal is to end in standard form. Remember, standard form looks like ax plus by plus c equals 0, and a, b, and c have to be integers, so no fractions allowed, and a must be positive. So for part A of our question today, it says that we want to give the equation of a line that has a slope of -4/13 and a y-intercept of 7. So I'm going to start with y equals mx plus b, and I know that the m is -4/13 and the b is 7. So I'll fill that into my y equals mx plus b, and I get y equals -4/13x plus 7. And now I can start trying to transform it into standard form. So I want to move things to one side of the equal sign, as well as get rid of fractions. So my first step here is going to be to get rid of the fractions. Because I only have one denominator, 13, I'm just going to multiply all three parts by 13. When I do that, I get 13y -4x plus 91. And now I'm going to start to move everything across the equal sign so that it equals 0. Because the -4x is negative and I need it to be positive, I'm going to move that to the other side so that I get a positive 4x. I want my x term to come first, so I put it at the front. And then finally, I need to move the 91 over to the other side, so I'm going to subtract 91 from both sides. And I end up with 4x plus 13y minus 91 equals 0. And that's what I wanted, was that equals 0. And so that is my final answer. For part B, it says we want to come up with the equation of the line that has the same y-intercept as the line x plus 2y equals 6. Now, the line isn't the same, just the y-intercept. And that makes sense because I could have two lines that cross through the same y-intercept, but they don't make the same line, right? So two lines going through the same y-intercept. That's possible. They're giving me one of the lines, I have to come up with the other. But I do know that they share the y-intercept. So we're going to start by finding the y-intercept. To do that, I'm going to change that equation that they gave me, x plus 2y equals 6, so it looks like y equals mx plus b. That way I'll be able to pick out the y-intercept really easily. So I need to get the y by itself to get y equals mx plus b. I'm going to start by getting rid of the x, and to do that, because it's a positive x, I will subtract x from both sides. I'm writing the x first because I want it to look like y equals mx plus b. And next I'm going to divide out the 2 that's with the y. And I divide the whole left side by 2 and the whole right side by 2. On the left side, the 2's cancel out to be 1y. And on the right-hand side, I can divide each part by 2. So I've got negative x divided by 2 plus 6 divided by 2. Now, negative x divided by 2, that's the same as negative 1x divided by 2. And I can actually pull that fraction out front and write it as negative 1/2 times x. That means the same thing. And then 6 divided by 2, that's 3. And what I've done is found out that the y-intercept of this line is 3, and my line, it said in the question, has the same y-intercept. So I know that the y-intercept of my line is 3. The next part of the question tells me that my line actually goes through the point P 3, 2. And I know that an old trick for finding slope was to use the formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's the trick that I use when I have 2 points on my line. So I have the y-intercept, and I know that I can rewrite the y-intercept as 0, 3, because at the y-intercept, the x value is 0. And I also have the point P, so 3, 2. And I'm going to use those 2 points in the formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Don't forget you can pause the video at any point to get caught up on copying my answers, or you can rewind if you missed something that I said. So now I'm going to substitute my values into this equation. The first point that I had 0, 3, that's my x1 and my y1. And the second point 3, 2, that's my x2 and my y2. So I'm going to use that to help me substitute it in. It says I'm going to do y2 minus y1 on top, so my values are 2 minus 3. And on the bottom, my values are 3 minus 0. And then I'll simplify that. On the top, I get negative 1, and on the bottom, I get 3. And that is my slope. Now that I have the slope and the y-intercept, I can find my line. So I'm going to start with y equals mx plus b and substitute in what I know. And I know to make it look like standard form, my first step is going to be to get rid of the fractions. So I have a denominator of 3. To get rid of that, I'm going to multiply all 3 parts by 3. In the next line, I'll divide out the 3 divided by the 3. That equals 1. And so I'm just left with the negative 1x here. And you don't need to write the 1. You could just write negative x plus 9. Now to simplify this into standard form, I need to get everything onto one side of the equal sign, and I want the x term to be positive. So I'm going to move the negative 1x, I'm going to add x to both sides, and that's going to change the x to a positive term. And then finally, I'll move the 9. Since it's positive, I'll subtract it from both sides. And that is our final answer in standard form. I've got the x, the y, and the number all together on one side equals 0. No fractions, and the x term is positive. For part C, I'm going to come up with a line that has the same slope as 5x plus 2y equals 8, and it has the x-intercept of y equals 2x plus 6. So a bit of work that we need to do here to find the slope of our line and to find the y-intercept of our line. So we'll start with finding the slope, and it's kind of like the last question where I know it has the same slope as this, or sorry, it's kind of like the last question in that I have 2 different lines. So I have 5x plus 2y equals 8, but it's not the same line that I'm looking for. It just shares the same slope or the same steepness. So in order to figure out what that slope is, I'm going to make 5x plus 2y equals 8 look like y equals mx plus b. That means I need to get the y by itself, so I'm going to start by getting rid of the x and moving it to the other side of the equal sign. Since it's a positive 5x, I'll subtract 5x from both sides. And then I'm going to divide everything by 2. I divide the whole left side by 2 and the whole right side by 2. That leaves me with just y equals. And then on the right side, I'm going to divide each term by 2. And I can simplify that y-intercept, but I don't really care. In this case, I was really just looking for the slope, and I figured out now that my slope is negative 5 halves. For the next part of the question, I want to be able to find the y-intercept, but they did tell me that I share an x-intercept with y equals 2x plus 6. So I'm going to figure out what that what that x-intercept is, and then hopefully I can use that to find my y-intercept. And you may recall from Monday's lesson that when I have an x-intercept, that means I'm on the x-axis. And if I'm on the x-axis, I haven't gone up or down. So I know that my y equals 0. So I'm going to use the equation and substitute that in. So instead of y equals 2x plus 6, I'm going to replace the y with a 0 because I know I'm on the x-axis when I'm at the x-intercept. So to figure out what that x-intercept is, I'm going to make this look like x equals a number. To do that, I need to move the 2 and the 6, but I move the adding and the subtracting numbers first. So I'll subtract 6 from both sides. In my next step, I'm going to get x by itself by dividing out the 2. And I'm left with x equals negative 3. So I've got the x-intercept, and that tells me that negative 3 comma 0 is a point on the line. I'm going to use that point to help me find the y-intercept. So far, what we have for our line, y equals mx plus b, is y equals negative 5 halves x plus b. I need to find the b value, and you may recall from spiral 2 that in order for me to do that, I can sub in a point. If I sub in a point for the x value and the y value, I'll just be left with the unknown b in this equation, and that'll tell me the y-intercept. So I'm going to sub in that my x comma y is equal to, and the only point I know on the line is that x-intercept that we just found, negative 3 comma 0. That means that in my equation y equals negative 5 halves x plus b, I'm going to replace the y with a 0 and the x with a negative 3. And now I'm just left with a b and a bunch of numbers. So I can make this look like b equals a number so that I know what the y-intercept is. I'm going to start by multiplying this fraction by this number. When I do that, it's the same as multiplying by negative 3 over 1. And to multiply two fractions, I multiply the numerators, and I get 15. And I multiply the denominators, and I get 2. Now to get b by itself, I'm going to take the 15 halves, and because it's positive, I'll subtract it to move it to the other side. Equal sign still in the middle. I get that b is equal to negative 15 halves. And now we're almost there. I know that my line is y equals negative 5 halves x. That was our slope from before. And now I also know the b value, negative 15 halves. In order to put this into standard form, I need to get rid of the denominators. And the denominator is actually the same in both parts on the right-hand side. So I can just multiply everything by that same denominator too. So I'll multiply the left side by 2 and each part of the right side by 2. When I do that, I'll divide the denominator by what I just multiplied by. And here they both divide out to a 1. So I get 1 times negative 5x and 1 times negative 15. And now I can start to make this look like standard form by moving everything to one side so that it equals 0. When I do that, I want the x term to be positive. So since it's a negative 5x here, I'm going to add it to the other side. And then to make it equal 0, I'll add 15 to both sides. And that is our final answer there. I've got the x, the y, and the plain old number all by itself equals 0 on the other side. I've got the x coming first, then the y, then the number, and I've got a positive number in front of the x, no fractions. Flipping your page over, we're going to take a look at the next lesson.